Career in IT, as any other career, is a marathon. In order to succeed, you need to pick your pace. There is no point in rushing and trying to learn all the technologies in 1 month, because here quality beats the quantity. But what if I told you that you can sprint the marathon? We all know that the beginning in IT is the hardest part, because you need to compete with all those juniors, you need to learn so many things, and it's just so hard to keep going on your pace because you're in this movement, which constantly pushes you farther and farther and farther. I'm going to tell you how you can sprint that first part of the IT and then move to the marathon and move on your pace. Today we are speaking about the fastest way to get into the IT world. And this method actually works for most of the people. I tried and validated it, and now I'm helping others using this method. Before I speak about the method itself, let's first define what is our goal here. And then secondary, let's define what are the problems on the way to this goal. Well, the goal is become a software developer or any other technical position in IT world. And that's the goal because once you get into IT, you get the good salary, you can work smart, meaning that you can walk on the beach while being on a meeting and actually thinking about the problem. So finally, being paid for your thinking, and of course to work remotely. That was one of my reasons why I wanted to become a developer, because I could work from home or from any other place in the world. And we want to do this fast, we want to change as fast as possible, because all of you who had been already working, you know that there is not really much sense going through all those courses, learning all the theory, because at the end of the day, the work will be different. So you want to become a developer, a support guy, or a DevOps as soon as possible, because that's when you start learning the real stuff. And it's important to say right now that I'm not trying to sell this idea to you. It has its bottlenecks, it's not the best way, but it's the fastest way. And the purpose of this video is to inform you that that strategy exists. And it's not going to help those who are constantly hesitating and are not sure whether they want to go into IT or they don't. If you are not ready to commit, that strategy, as well as any other strategy, will not help you. It's like going to the gym. We all know that we need physical activity, but we don't do anything about it. In order to get into the IT world, you need to commit long term. Again, in a gym or in a marathon, before actual results, you have a month of practice. The same works with getting your first job. On the halfway, you will start receiving offers for support roles, for Q&A roles, and for testing roles. And so many of my friends weren't committed to becoming a developer, so they accepted those roles, thinking that in the future they will be able to switch inside the company. But it never works like this. So it is extremely important to define your goal and to focus on it. Okay, so we want to become a developer or Q&A or DevOps or SRE. So what stops us? It didn't really change since I was looking for my first job. You have too many candidates, you have not so much positions open for the juniors, because not every company is ready to invest in a junior. And by the way, companies hire juniors because they want to grow them to the seniors to then underpay them for doing the senior job. And there is a growing tendency to replace junior work with artificial intelligence. So you as a junior are competing with AI. There are a long list of requirements for the junior positions. I encourage you to go and compare this list for the senior and major positions, and in fact you will find that there are not many differences. But because juniors are not so highly paid, nobody really cares how to test them on interviews. So prepare to be interviewed by people who don't care how it's gonna end up and who are not engaged in the process. Back in the day, I knew that in order to outstand, I need to either be cheaper than others to work for less money, or I need to be learning as hell in order to just outstand others with the theoretical knowledge. But turns out there is a third approach, and this is the topic of today's video. I know that it works, I tested on myself and on my friends, and I think it's the most effective one. Comparing to traditional one, where you spend years having little stress, here on the other hand you can spend only months, but have a huge stress in those few months. So as I said, it's sprint versus marathon. So what do? First, you start learning technical stuff. The same thing as with the traditional approach. You can do this via courses, you can do it with a mentor, you can do it by yourself, but it's important to focus on the right skills. You need to have a solid basis, but you don't have to learn every framework and every detail, because you are still just a junior. And you have to really learn it, not just memorize. You need to have a deeper understanding on what you are speaking about. If you focus on the right things, it can take only a few months. Even for the Java, which is considered one of the most complicated languages, you can do it in 3 to 4 months. And then you have to stop. Instead of learning the technical skills, the theory, you start learning soft skills. Knowing how to communicate with your colleagues and also knowing how to sell yourself on an interview. And that's where we already start practicing by going on interviews. You're gonna learn what questions are actually asked on the real interviews, and you will see how you perform in terms of selling yourself. Because for the junior, it's easy to teach you something, it's easy to teach you some technology, but nobody ever is going to commit to change you as a person. It's important for you to show yourself as a good person, as a good coworker, as a responsible working force. Many people just focus on technical stuff and never try to look at this direction. And the third step, that's where it becomes a sprint, not the marathon. You are not going to compete with the newcomers, but you are going to compete with the juniors with some real experience. A few months after I got my first job, I was super motivated, so I was working a lot and learning a lot. So in a few months, I was already doing a mid-year job. And I was curious, what is the difference if you go to the interview as a mid-year? So I just stretched the truth a little bit. I added some years of experience to my resume, and I just went to the market to see what is the difference. And it turns out it's actually the same. It's even easier for the mid-years in some regard, because as a newcomer with no experience, you are being tested on the technical things, and there are just too many things to know everything. And interviewer will always find things that you don't know, and it's so easy to find the reason not to hire you. But if you're a junior with at least 1 year of experience, you can already speak about that experience, and the person can see that you understand the things behind the scenes. The difference between newcomer and junior with some years of experience is not in expertise, it's not in a technical knowledge, but in a knowledge of these workflows. People with experience know what's important for the business, they know how to work in a team, and they know what is the day-to-day routine. But the problem is, you don't have that experience. But I have. And there is the whole industry of experienced IT specialists who don't keep this in secret. So I can share it with you, and you can find other people who are ready to share those little things with you. And if you understand it enough, you are ready for the junior's interview. You will be able to pass with that knowledge. That's how you can become a junior with a decent salary in only roughly about 6 months. But I think that the journey to the junior position is actually not the hardest part. The hardest part is the actual onboarding, because that's where the real work from your side starts. During the probation period, you have to become the actual junior. You might say that at the first day of your work, your colleagues will find out that you actually don't have any experience. And that's why it's important to have a mentor who will support you in the first month. I'm not saying that the mentor should do your job. I'm saying that you should learn how to do the actual job, but be ready to spend evenings having a call with your mentor, speaking about the problems that you have at your work, and closing this gap between the junior and newcomer. Those few months during the probation period are the most crucial. But if you have the mentor who you can pay with your new, better salary, if you are ready to dedicate your evenings and even weekends to close this gap, and if you are doing the things that are expected from junior, meaning asking a lot of questions, being curious, and learning fast. During the probation period, you are not expected to do the actual work. You will probably have a lot of onboarding stuff, you will have to request the access, there will probably be some internal trainings, and it will take weeks if not months to learn about the architecture in the company. And your biggest advantage is that from time to time you can ask stupid questions because you are still just a junior. I know that this method is safe. It's not illegal. Well, I don't deny that lying is a bad thing, but companies lie all the time. Imagine being a new company and searching for the first customer. And so how are you going to pitch the idea? Well, look, we have a new team that didn't do any project. They are having trouble recalling each other's names, and we're just testing our business model, and we are not sure that we charge you the right amount, but we are going to try our best to fulfill your order, and maybe it's gonna work out, we will see. No company does that. Instead, they're going to stretch the truth wherever it's possible. So of course it is expected from you on an interview to do the same, for as long as you are able to get the actual work done with the help or without help, it's fine. And there is no punishment. In the worst case, you just lose your job. But with all this practice behind and actually having already some little work experience, you will just go and find another one. I'm doing this right now for the Java developers, and I have a few profiles on the mentoring websites. You can go and check it out. So if you're ready to commit, nothing should stop you. So I was thinking about this a lot, and where should be the limit? Why, if you can lie about being a junior, why can't you lie about being a senior and going in further and further? Because you can actually do that. And many people actually do. I have heard stories about people who are aiming for the executive positions, which have onboarding usually lasting for like half a year. They just don't do anything because they have no idea about the work itself. But for the half year, they have executive salary, and once they are discovered to be fake, they just go and find another job. Because the only thing those people are good at is landing and offers. I don't think it's fair, I think it's too much. So my own limit when it comes to stretching the truth is lying only about something that I am ready to take the responsibility of. And because we all here have a technical mindset, let me back it up with statistic a little bit. So one survey indicated that 64.2% of Americans admit to having lied on their resume at least once. And another research that has been done only the last year found out that 63% of job seekers who lied in their resume actually landed a job. Out of those 63%, 46 believe that they wouldn't land a job without lying on their interview. And that's only one side of the coin. Let's take a look at another one. The ghost jobs. The job listings that don't lead anywhere. Companies publish those listings to build visibility and to fake their success, because if they expand, well, that means they are profitable. And that means more investors, more money, and actual profit. And Greenhouse's data indicates that actually from 18 to 22% of job listings are fake. My Perfect Resumes research from the last year found out that 81% of recruiters admitted posting the fake jobs, with 33% actually stating that those fake jobs represent a huge percent of their portfolio. A resume builder research from the last year found that almost 40% of the companies posted the fake job listings last year. And even 30 still had an active fake job listings at the moment of the survey. Let's speak about the drawbacks of this method. The first one is background checks. Many companies try to filter those liars by having a background check. In essence, that is just trying to validate whether you had that experience or not. But because of the GDPR, company actually has to ask your permission before contacting your previous company. So what you can do? Well, whether you can find a friend who is good enough pretending to be your manager and give his contact, or you can just say that no, you don't agree, and that's your right. And that doesn't necessarily mean an end of the world, because after all those rounds of interview and receiving an offer, company might just accept that opinion because you already costed them some decent amount of money. The same goes for the reference checks. You definitely have some good friends that would help you for the glass of beer or for the bottle of Coca-Cola, who could act as your previous colleagues or your previous managers. The next drawback is fear. From my childhood, I was taught that it's bad to lie. So I was fearing so much lying on the interview. And after I received a job offer, after I switched to the company, after I became working and even proved to be an experienced person, I was still fearing that people will find out that I'm an imposter. That's called imposter syndrome. And the sad truth is that even people who never lied, even honest people who learn a lot and who try to keep up with all those crazy technologies being announced every year, those people also experience imposter syndrome. So the problem is not in the world, but is here. And if you're an IT, you probably can afford to go to the psychologist. So again, yes, that is a concern, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. The next drawback is stress. For me, it was the biggest concern because sprinting the marathon means a lot of stress. My anti-stress cocktail is having a good diet, exercising regularly, being in nature from time to time, and having an evening Netflix. And I have heard some people who say that lying on the interviews and pretending to be a different person can destroy your reputation as an expert. And I don't really understand those people, because there are so many companies who are being bankrupted every year, and so many companies join the market that in a few years nobody will know about your reputation. Everything is just moving so fast that no one really cares. And by the way, I think it's natural to lie from time to time, even for people who consider themselves honest. So when it comes to speaking about something that your job depends on, of course everyone is expected to lie. And the last drawback is that you probably might think that this is more expensive than the traditional approach, because you have to pay for the mentor, you have to pay for the courses, you have to pay for the good material, you have to pay to know that you are learning the right things. And well, yes, that does cost some money, but I would argue that you are going to make much more money becoming developer faster and getting this huge salary much faster. And now let's speak about alternatives. Alternative is working hard with unfair salary as an intern. Alternative is learning for the years without knowing when you're going to get your first job. Alternative is going through the traditional pathways that are designed to build a solid foundation, to build the competence and credibility. But if you ask anyone who went through that approach, you will hear that they were fearing the first interview and they have experienced an imposter syndrome. So what's the difference? Yes, it's nice to go to the expensive bootcamps. Yes, it's nice to have a dedicated self-study. It's nice to do some personal projects, and it's nice to do some open source contributions. You can try even freelancing. But if your goal is to get into IT fast, that is not your way. And again, I'm not trying to sell you this. Every method has its pros and cons, but I just want you to be informed. I want you to know about this method because I like it. I mentor it and I know that it works. So in any way, if you want to know how ready you are for the interviews, you can go and check my scorecard. If you watched until here, this one might be useful for you. And finally, please choose your path, take your step and get paid.